Hi, good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Morning Briefing. I'm Jeff DeForest, along with my man Henry Markin, who is probably, I don't know, you look like you just went 12 at De La Hoya, kid. This getting up early on the West Coast has not necessarily served your lifestyle well, because I would imagine you were out partying quite a bit last night after you got by. And may we bless you, my son, you have survived in your survivor pool. But we'll get to that. I did want to make and it's a shame we have to start all of these shows with a clarification of late, since we've just got rolling here on the No Filter Network. And, it is no filter, but we did not mean to imply that we condone the behavior of that Cavalcante guy that got captured the other day after 2 weeks on the lam. He had escaped from prison, as we said, crab walking his way out of jail, going up a wall, two walls, as if he was being levitated. And we thought, how could that not be the Sports Center number one play of the day over any ground ball in the hole that was backhanded by some shortstop who rose to his feet and fired across the first base just in time to nip the runner? That was some play. But we didn't mean to condone this guy's behavior. This guy was a monster, at least according to all of the testimony. And I believe that whenever they concluded at the end of his trial on murdering his girlfriend in front of her two children, including testimony from the children, probably had enough validity to make you think we don't have to go with qualifications about the man's level of guilt and how this was a guy, Henry, that made Kaiser Sose look like he would be your accountant or something. I mean, he was about as evil as they get. But we didn't mean to say that we were looking forward to him escaping. No, quite the contrary. Deserves to be where he is. But it is funny. It's just a psychological twist in a lot of people, including myself. And Henry, you admitted to it too, that you sometimes find yourself sort of rooting for the guy to dodge the law for as long as possible and maybe even mysteriously disappear, which is just a strange thing. You're rooting for the underdog, as you were
In
last
movies.
night.
In
Yes.
movies. In movies. That's
Yeah.
I think that's the big one is the it's not in real life, it's in
Right.
movies. In real life, we're kind of hoping they really should catch this guy because I don't want him in my neighborhood. But in movies, yes, in movies, you always want him to escape and get away because they're always the good guy in movies. But in
There's a
real life,
fascination with him, no doubt.
yeah,
Now, I don't know if you escaped last night and got away, but if you looked at the game between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Minnesota Vikings, we had discussed it. You, with confidence, my friend, went ahead and played the Eagles in kind of an odd strategy, but one that I usually agree with. If you like a game early in the season in these survivor pools, and many of these should be contested with a suicide note by the bed and maybe even the possibility of attaching yourself to a Delana drip, maybe even a cyanide cap, because you get knocked out early in the season and you feel like an absolute fool, do you not?
yes. Oh my God,
Nothing could be
such
more buffoon like than getting knocked out of a survivor pool. You can't even take one game straight up, the biggest mismatch on the board, and bet that game with confidence. You end up a loser and you feel like a loser for the rest of the season. You may as well just pack it in. Don't make any other side bets. But and to lose in week two with the Philadelphia Eagles, normally a team that you would maybe want to reserve for later in the season when you were in a little bit tough and there were less and less people involved in the pool. You would want to have them as one of your choices, but you went ahead and made a play that I genuinely agree with, and that's just play the strongest play that you have every week and worry about what teams you have left later on as the season progresses. And you may have to get lucky with a couple of things. You might have to take the Houston Texans one day to win their one game of the season. But if you're going to win the pool, you definitely want to stay alive early. And you managed to do that last night. Although, a couple of real tough beat angles to this game. Did you realize this? And I began to have grave concerns, Henry, after our conversation yesterday on the show about the hook in this ballgame. The line, as we were talking, was 6 and a hook, and I kind of cavalierly said, "Yeah, I'd be inclined to go ahead and lay that." And then I started to choke on that, realizing that the hook is more than the sword of Damocles when it comes to wagering. Now, there are some people philosophically that would say, "Well, go ahead and buy the hook." But that can become prohibitive as you continue to try to buy yourself out of what is a tenuous situation, and you end up compromising your price so badly that it isn't worth making the bet in the first place. The game did go off at 6 points, so I think you got in late, Henry, and it looks like you got in late last night and accomplished the push, which was great. But in the first half, Minnesota was getting 3.5 points. Think about this. This is why gamblers are Meshuggah. This is why they have organizations to deal with things and the depraved psychology of having to contend with the toughest of beats, where you're getting 3.5 points with Minnesota. They're about to go in and win the first half outright as Jefferson makes his catch. He's
That was
down around the
crazy.
goal line. And what kind of cockamamie rule is this? So who made this rule? Jose Suleiman from the World Boxing Council, where if the ball goes through the end zone on a fumble, not only does the team that fumbled the ball, lose the play, and they lose the ball altogether. The other team's got the ball. It's a touchback. It's crazy. Doesn't make any sense. Nobody recovered the ball. You would think that maybe the ball, wherever it went out of bounds, would be the spot. But if it rolls to the end zone, you lose possession of the ball as if the other team had recovered. So Jefferson fumbles. And on the replay, it shows that, yeah, he had put the ball through the plane after he lost control of it. Touchback, Eagles get the ball at the 20-yard line. And you're thinking, what? With less than a minute to go, what are they going to do? They're going to run out the clock, maybe a couple of runs up the middle. There's a little chance they're going to take a risk now after having a 3-point lead. Fire one down the field. Jalen Hurts wasn't having that much success passing the football, even though the final numbers would indicate possibly otherwise. But they ran the ball right down Minnesota's throat. Brian Flores, the former head coach of the Miami Dolphins, who left the team amidst much controversy, including the implication that the Dolphins were paying him to lose games deliberately, or were willing to pay him, and he refused to do it. But what was that? The Red Sea defense he had against the run? The Eagles then proceed to run the football into what would be normally an impossible field goal distance. And then, as if Tom Dempsey himself was resurrected from the grave, they trot their kicker out there and he kicks a 61-yard field goal. And what happens? Philadelphia covers the 3.5 point halftime spread and leads by 6. And all of your hopes and dreams go up in smoke right there. If you were smart enough to bet or had the opinion to bet Minnesota, you were absolutely right the entire time. They survived all of these hideous turnovers. Now 6 fumbles in 2 games for the Minnesota Vikings. They're the first team to be 0-2 with a quarterback that threw for a combined 700 yards in the first 2 games of the season. And Kirk Cousins. And you're out whatever you bet. If it was a couple of units and you're out a couple of times, there's no way a 61-yard field goal should beat you in that situation. I don't know if you were in on that as a prop at the halftime score there, Henry, but it was pure and unadulterated ugliness. And then at the end of the game, I mean, what? You get the typical backdoor cover by Minnesota as they get the ball with about 4 minutes to go. No chance to win the game. Philadelphia's in control. Of course, they're going to march it down the field systematically and methodically, go 80 yards in, like 10 plays. 3:03 goes off the clock, compromising their chances even further of having a chance to win the game. And sure enough, they score, and they get within 6 points and ruin a lot of people's evening watching football last night. There was a rumor. I don't know. I mean, how solid this is in terms of having a foundation in actual reality, that the Jets might be inclined or would be wise to be inclined to pursue a trade for Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, I saw that rumor. I don't know the implications of that, and if that's as easy as somebody on ESPN's social media team just put it together. If it could actually make sense.
It gets back to our discussion of yesterday, which
Yeah.
I'm glad you're a believer, my friend. I really I like that. I love seeing optimism among the young people of America today. It's great. But Zach, I used to have a friend, and he would hang out. There was a plastic surgeon before plastic surgery was like in vogue, and you could get, a Botox injection at a street corner. If you pulled up to a light, and instead of the guy coming out with like a "will work for food" sign, he was like licensed medical doctor, and he would go ahead and administer Botox right there while you were sitting in Beverly Hills with a. Did they have that by the Beverly Hills Hotel or anything? Have you seen that where they come out at the red light, give somebody that's driving a Mercedes convertible or a Bentley convertible a Botox injection right there at the light, and then they go on their way? That
You
hasn't been
know,
happening out there.
not that I've seen. They've done a couple of like these like drive by like like heroin things where it's like
Oh
a little
yeah, well that's
quickie.
a whole nother story.
Yeah, that's different. I've seen
Yeah,
that, but none of the Botox, like
no,
little
no,
fixer
no
uppers,
cosmetic
no
surgery.
no facelifts, no drive through like little eyebrow situations.
Yeah,
No, it's just like a quick little quick rush, like like just to feel something to go to work, and then that's it.
pretty prevalent here in Florida, Boca Raton, Palm Beach area. You'll see something like that happening. But I had a friend, and he used to hang out there. There was a doctor that did most of the nose jobs of the very attractive Jewish women that went to Syracuse University. A guy named Dr. Diamond. And that's how I became familiar with him because you would see like 10 or 12 very attractive young ladies, and they all had the same nose. I think the guy only had one mold for the nose. And this friend of mine used to hang out there in front of the doctor's office, and he would, make some kind of eye contact and say something to probably, of the people that were going in there, the young ladies, maybe the least attractive of the bunch. And I said, how come, I mean, you're not approaching the more attractive women that are going in there? And he said, they do great work in there, as if like this guy was going to work a miracle, and he could take the least attractive female in the world and turn her into a perfect Dr. Diamond specimen, and that's what it feels like with this whole Zach Wilson thing to me still, which makes you wonder why rumors like this would surface. Where here's Kirk Cousins. Is he not always in his contract free agent year? I think he's been in that season for like the last 15 seasons. No, he eventually got like some kind of a package. This guy. And you're not his biggest fan. I would say you had some particularly unflattering things to say about him on the show yesterday.
I mean, it wasn't anything that hasn't been said about him before. It's not like I was deliberately calling out his character or like his personal traits. I was saying the fact of the matter, and to the point, it still holds right now. The second that sun goes down and he's playing a primetime game,
Yeah,
I mean, it,
he's horrendous in those spots.
well, but he killed it last night, and he had almost a damn near perfect passer rating. Like he threw for 364 touchdowns, no picks. But it's still just that aura, right?
Yes,
It's the spirits. I mean, there's just some things
you
in
still lose.
football. You
Yeah,
still
I
lose.
mean
You still
the
lost.
team around him had like a bizarre series.
Yes,
These fumbles in this game by Minnesota. I mean, you're looking at all of them and going, how is that possible that a team could be afflicted with? And how many times are you going to hear this season? It's already popped up like a half a dozen times. I always love the losing coach press conference where the guy doesn't want to be there. You dragged him out of the locker room by obligation. He's got some sponsor obligations that he has to fulfill for the team, and he gets up there and says, "Well, you can't win in the National Football League if you're going to turn the ball over." And I'm like, whoa, there's a revelation. I mean, what you do, I don't know. Some of these fumbles you see, it's almost impossible to conceive that you could train yourself not to fumble the football in certain circumstances where a guy just jabs the ball with a helmet from behind on your blind side and happens by almost pure accident to drive his helmet, the crown of the helmet right into the ball as you're going to the ground. And so you're off balance. And, I don't know that you can, be overly harsh about running backs who seem to be disregarded as common bag ladies and trash by NFL standards today, seemingly interchangeable. And yet I don't know that I buy that. But an inordinate amount of turnovers for Minnesota and some really bad luck. That was a tough beat all the way around. I guess if you got to push, it's kind of like the old Pat tie dye theory, and a tie is like kissing your sister. But yeah, I mean, you got out of it. I don't know. Have you suffered any tough beats? I was thinking about. I had a 3-fight boxing parlay a long time ago. I was out in Las Vegas, and I was sitting with a guy who is an iconic boxing historian and writer named Bert Sugar. Not sure if you're familiar with his work, but he was on everything, and he has the fedora and the cigar. I mean, he really looked the part. Had one of the great quotes of all time, which I would like you to adhere to if I was going to give you a fatherly piece of advice, Henry, after
sure.
working with you for the last week and a half.
Sure.
And that was Bert Sugar's famous line: "I would rather be a good liver than have a good liver." So this was the kind of thing
It's pretty
philosophically
good.
that was at work at the
That's
time.
good. I like that.
And I go to bet like a 3 fight parlay that I am very sure about. All three of these fights, I know they're going to go my way, right? The first matched up a guy named Jesse James Leha, who's now a promoter in San Antonio. He puts on some big shows. Was a very slick boxer puncher. He's going against the great Ghana champion Azuma Nelson, worshipped by many as one of the great pound for pound fighters of all time. I had seen their previous fight actually in San Antonio, and Leha smoked Nelson, but somehow got robbed on the decision, so they were having a rematch. I'm all in on Leon. Boom. Part one of the parlay. He wins easily, and we're 1 for 1. You had Felix Tito Trinidad going against Hector Macho Camacho. I'm not sure if you're familiar. Are you a boxing fan? Macho Camacho, just a wild, flamboyant fighter. People were not yet quite as familiar with how good Trinidad was at the time. He's an underdog to Camacho, and we lay it all on Trinidad. I'd seen him fight a few times before, thought he was dynamite. He smokes Camacho, embarrasses him, and now we're 2 for 2. So the third fight is a Julio Cesar Chavez special, and he's going against a guy named Frankie Randall, who he had previously lost to, albeit, this was one of those Don King promotions where you're listening to the introduction of the judges at ringside. And there's Jimmy Lennon Jr. and the mic comes down from the ceiling and he goes, "And judging at ringside, we have Ray Charles out of Nevada, Jose Feliciano out of Los Angeles, California, and from the grave, Helen Keller." I mean, 3 blind people are judging these fights, with Julio Cesar Chavez in them. And so, anyway, I mean, there's no way that this fight could go any other way except that after this Frankie Randall, who had beaten Chavez before, is beating the living daylights out of this guy. And all of a sudden, the referee calls an accidental headbutt, and Chavez has like a little, cut, a fraction of what you would normally see as even being a cause for concern. And they stop the fight. They go to the scorecards, and I can't believe it. I'm still stunned. I remember standing there as they read, "And the winner by unanimous decision, Julio Cesar Chavez." They give him the fight. It was so bad that they actually turned over the craps tables. The Mexican fans with the red bandanas, they were turning over the craps tables as they were exiting the Grand Garden there at the MGM Grand. It was ugly, but a tough, tough beat. There are many of them across the course of gambling adventures, and hopefully you guys won't suffer too many of them this weekend. All right, you want a game or two, Henry, for the weekend? From
Yeah, sure.
one of my real trend handicapping guys, and then there was
Let's
agreement on one of these games from a couple of handicappers I talked to this morning on another show. These are very astute handicappers. One is a gentleman named Mark Lawrence, and he gives the stat that Appalachian State, who just had that thriller in Manila where they lost in overtime, and we've seen App State do this before.
mm,
Remember beating Michigan in the big
mhm.
house, and they've had their share of monumental upset victories on the road, and it's to be respected. There's no question. This is that Bethune Cookman, and how bad was that mismatch last night? Bethune Cookman. Do you get ACC network out there in California?
I do, but
Oh
there
yeah,
was just I personally I didn't get to catch the game. I was afraid it was just going to be, yeah, it was a
you didn't miss
massacre.
anything.
I don't like watching massacres, 48-7. I don't need to see that happen in real time. Like, I got enough shit going on in my life to feel bad for my own situations. I don't need to feel bad for any, coach who's getting wiped on national
Oh,
television. No
his
thanks.
coach, he was perplexed the entire time. Well, they know what they're coming in there for. They're coming in for a paid beating. It's the
Right.
age-old
Right.
question. If I offered you $1 million to get in the ring with Mike Tyson in his prime, would you take it? And
No. No.
well, you might be inclined to at first, but then you realize that one shot and you're finished. What are you going
Yeah,
to do with the money then?
yeah, exactly. That's permanent damage that not even money can fix. You're
Exactly.
broken for life.
And there's a certain clubbing of seals feel to these kind of mismatches, which it was. I mean, right from the start, it was brutal. But I mean, here's how bizarre the transfer portal has gone. A long time. I mean, this is one of the fabled black schools in Florida, African American schools, and they had a white quarterback come in when their quarterback got injured. That seems impossible. That would be like the drum major for the fabled FAMU band, which is another Florida school, has this famous marching band. They win all of these, awards and everything. Although they were, the hazing thing was a little bit bizarre. They used to have a guy like the tuba player, the fat kid that had the tuba. He would have to get on a school bus and just get whacked by everybody as he made his way from the front door to the exit. And they finally put a stop to this, saying everybody was aware of it, that this was part of the process of being in the band, for God's sake. But
Right.
yeah, I mean, if the drum major for the FAMU band was a white guy, you would say, something is a little bit out of sync here. I mean, this doesn't make sense, and that's how bad it was for the Bethune-Cookman team last night. They ended up having a white quarterback there, which I believe he might be the only white guy that's enrolled in the school. That's possible. I don't mean that in any kind of racist sense. It's just fact that you would never anticipate seeing a white quarterback at Bethune-Cookman, and maybe that maybe he's making some kind of money on a name, image, and likeness thing, but he was the backup to a guy who wasn't having a whole lot of success to begin with, so it was ugly. Anyway, this Bethune-Cookman, they took the spanking last night, and people are trying to figure out if the Hurricanes are for real. But in this Appy State game, they come out of that overtime loss to North Carolina. North Carolina's defense is horrendous.
Awful.
App State is 1-10 against the spread when favored in ball games. They're often heavy underdogs in these kind of spots. They take on East Carolina, so we have a lean to go ahead and take the 8.5 with East Carolina in this ball game against Appalachian State. Appalachian State probably going to be wildly overbet because of the way that they played last week against North Carolina. Bounceroo City, my friend. This is the bounce house. They come back to the pack. East Carolina, always a credible opponent in a lot of different spots. And they find a way to cover the point spread of 8.5, which may go even higher by the time they get to post time. And then one of our good friends, a very astute college football handicapper, loves Tennessee laying 6 against a very poor University of Florida team.
Really?
See,
Okay.
yeah,
Huh.
loves Tennessee in this spot.
Isn't it
So,
in the swamp though? That's down in
in the
Gainesville.
swamp,
Yeah.
this is blasphemous. I mean, you have all of these hillbillies going to come down there. They'll be, you're firing up the stills in the parking lot. Have you ever been to a Gator game?
I haven't. I would love to go though. That sounds
Oh
so
no, you
fun.
wouldn't. Believe me. I mean,
Oh really?
yeah. I mean, bring a shotgun with you if you're going, and you'll fit right in. Just attach it right to the back of your truck there. I mean, this is deliverance. This is a guy telling you at the tailgate party to squat down like a pig. I mean, it's insane. They literally bring their mobile homes and put them on cement blocks for the tailgate parties.
Oh,
They
so-
says, "Come on, Elmo, yeah, put it up on the blocks, yeah, right there." And it's crazy. But I don't think Napier is going to. I tend to agree with my buddy. I mean, what we've witnessed so far from the University of Florida is very atypical of the way that you would remember these teams when they were in their heyday with like Spurrier and Urban Meyer. They seem to be a long way away from that, and of course, they lost Anthony Richardson to the pros. So they look relatively inept. And Tennessee laying 6 at the Swamp. And normally you would look at that number and become immediately alarmed, going into Gainesville. But if they can survive the hillbilly factor, Tennessee prevails and covers that point spread. That's our opinion anyway.
Okay.
Here on the show.
That's a clip. Yeah, I can use that.
Put some banjo music in the background there, and it'll be very, very appropriate there. That's for sure. All right, Henry, I'll let you get going. What we have and the pros. I don't know. This is not a hometown bias, and I'm not necessarily inclined to count on this team, the Miami Dolphins. They have provided much anxiety, heartbreak, and a lot of dark moments, darker than even Aaron Rodgers has experienced when he's deliberately put himself in these situations. But how? I mean, and we know Belichick is great at taking away your number one weapon. I mean, that's been defensive philosophy that he's exhibited going all the way back to his coordinator days, and he does it very effectively. So let's suppose they devise and concoct a way to at least offset Tyreek Hill. Maybe he has what, 6 catches for 72 yards, something like that. I mean, that would be certainly marginal and minimal compared to what you're usually expecting from this guy. Uh, but do they have enough to stay within 3 of the Miami Dolphins? It's hard to envision them winning this game. And Mac Jones, I think that were his statistics not overwhelmingly inflated last week
I
because they were
feel
trailing
like,
so badly?
yeah, I feel like whenever that happens, like if you're coming back and I mean, you can call it what you want. It is garbage time, like because he did not win the game, so
Yeah.
he was just padding his stats in an attempt to come back, but fell short. The Eagles won. It looks like Mac Jones balled the fuck out, and maybe he did. Maybe it's an over exaggeration. You look at last night. I think the commonality isn't exactly that these guys are that good at quarterbacks. I mean, it's that the Eagles have a lot of holes in their secondary. I mean, Kirk Cousins threw for 360. Mac Jones threw for 300 plus. Maybe the Eagles defense is just like a shower curtain, you know?
Highly overrated at this point.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, when you were expecting them to dominate this ball game, you didn't see the immense pressure. Yeah, you're onto something there. The Eagles' defense, highly vaunted and and deservedly so last year. Not so hot so far. The first couple of games of the season. All right, I do like the Dolphins though, laying 3 points against the
I
Patriots.
like that too. I think unfortunately the Patriots start 0-2, and as good as they are, they're stuck in a really, really elite division, and so this is going to be an uphill fight for them all year. I think the Dolphins are a strong 2-0 by the time this weekend's.
Tua. We could do
Oh
the
yeah,
chant. All right, I'll let you get out of here, Henry, and thank you everybody for tuning in. Great job, my friend. It was a pleasure
of
for the last week and a
course,
half. The
of
morning briefing
course.
should be joined now, and he does want his pro wrestling name to be Mr. Morocco upon his return from Morocco. Mike Lubitz, my normal partner here on the program, and Henry, great job. Thank you. I can't thank you enough for getting up. I mean, it really was noble of you to do this all week long, and it was a pleasure, and hopefully we'll be able to do it again sometime soon.
Of course. Thank you for having me and for being a very, very good mentor to me the past 2 weeks, Defo. You're the man.
All
Thank you.
right. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. All right. We'll see you guys Monday morning. Next edition of the Morning Briefing.